welcome to the Laughing Monkey Music Show. Today we're talking to Roine Stolt. How are you?
I'm fine. I just had the dinner. It was some I think it was chicken actually, and it was some mushroom that my wife found not too far away from here actually. You just go into the
Wow.
woods and you mushroom. And it wasn't magic. So I
I was gonna say because in America we don't do that. We don't know what we're gonna get. It's kind of a mixture. And for me, actually, right
yeah.
now it's like lunchtime. So it's crazy.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah.
the
Dinner
magic of Zoom,
time.
yeah,
Oh,
and lunchtime for us. The magic of
yeah.
Zoom lets everybody in the world talk at the same time and communicate.
Yeah.
So we've talked a while back about some of your stuff, and I'm a big fan of yours because you have so many projects you've done. And I don't know if you remember, I told you one time, like one of my favorite albums. I have probably 10 favorite albums of all time. And one of the top 10 is the one you did with John Anderson. That is one of like an album of perfection. As a lot,
Yeah.
I love all your music, but to me, there's like certain albums I just like go up in the top list forever for me. That Desert Island stuff. And that you two
Yeah.
guys
Yeah.
just knocked out of the park together. You guys were just anyhow. But I want to talk about a few things going on. You the new album and stuff. I want to end on that, but I want to talk. You have a lot of reissues coming out. There's a lot of good stuff coming out from you from Flower Kings. What was the
True,
impetus to
true,
get that
true.
going? To re-record? Because I know it looks like you did some re-recording, or the mixing sounds different. Um,
All mixing is, I mean, all the mastering is different. I mean,
yeah,
I took every bit, I put it in the new system, kind of an analog system with tube equalizers and stuff like that, and high-end compressors. So I tried to find all the original um, mixes. And I mean, at the time, there wasn't mixes to reel to reel. Maybe the first two albums was mixed on reel to reel. But let me just close my email
so
here
this is
because
this
there's
is
a
this
little.
is all. So this was all tape that you were converting over. Is what you're saying?
Oh, yeah,
Updating it?
in the beginning. It was actually progressing from 16 channel analog,
Yeah,
the first album, to 16 analog synced up with an ADAT,
yep.
like the ADAT, the VHS tapes, 8 channel. So then I had 24 channels, and then probably for about 2 or 3 albums. So things up until Stardust and or possibly Flower Power, those albums they were made that way. And then after that, that was a time when the hard drives started coming in. I mean, in the professional studio world,
Right.
you had already things like that, but most people still used like reel to reel, but they used a system sometimes to fly in a choir or something that you recorded in a different. Let's say you want to go to a church and record a pipe organ. You take this mobile digital recorder and then you go back to the studio. So it's a time when there's lots of different medias around, and I was in the middle of all that. And then I think we moved on to just a hard drive recording, and from that then to the computer based recording systems that we all know, that people, I mean, you probably have it, everyone has it.
I do, and I
We
went to school for
have
recording.
48
Yeah.
channels, 69 channels, 125, 250 channels. It doesn't matter today. You can have as many channels as you want.
Almost too many, almost too many. I think
Oh, yeah, I
what you you
agree.
you, you touched on is that it's amazing that the realm of stuff. Because I went to school for, and if you've heard me say, when I went to school, like, I don't know, late '80s, early '90s, I was learning, tapes, splicing punch-ins, the old-fashioned splice punch-in. There was a real challenge that you really had to know your stuff.
Oh, totally, totally. I mean, there
And
was
then
no
over
way
the
you did
years, it went to digital for
punch
me.
in.
Like I literally went from learning tape in school to then having to
Yeah.
go back to school again, or other classes to get caught up in digital. Like the formats were changing so much. So the fact that you have all these formats you had to put together and then get back into this world and then start mastering, to me, is amazing.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the problem is that this the debate about analog or digital. I think digital is fine. I think the initial problem with digital was that the converters weren't good enough, At least for
Yeah.
people like us. We couldn't afford the exclusive converters that was needed for that type of recording. So in my mind, sometimes the analog recordings from that time sound better to me. If I
Oh,
hear
I
a
still
drum
think it
kit
does at
record,
times. You
yeah,
know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, but today I think you can actually, for instance, the album we were supposed to talk about, the new
We are.
album,
Yes, of
it
course.
was actually recorded through an fully analog desk. Um, a new one, and probably the last one that Rupert Neve did before he died.
Mhm.
Not that particular one, but the construction that
Right. Yeah.
he part of. Yeah. So that was a fully analog. There's no way you can optimize the faders and stuff like that. It's just like an old school analog uh, desk, for studio
Mhm.
recording. And so we used that one, but we tracked it into Pro Tools. So once you have it, all the microphones, all the preamps, all the mixing desk, then you take what you get from all the channels, from drums, from bass, from guitars, and you put it into the system, digital. And I think the way digital is today with 24-bit 96, for instance, what we use, 24-bit 96 kilohertz,
Mhm.
that's quite a good sampling rate, I think, to sort of detect all
Right.
the harmonics and the dynamics and all that. So I think we're in a good, where we are right now, we're in a good place. But I mean, looking back now to what we did with the Flower Kings with a very low budget in the beginning, just this 16-track analog, and then going with the ADATs and trying to make it work to have more channels to record drums more separate, because in the beginning I think I recorded drums on maybe 5 or 6 channels.
Yeah.
Today we record drums with mics in the room and another mic in the room,
And the
and
ceiling
some
and yeah.
ribbon mic here, and just all these channels. And then you have the choice when you're mixing, which is a good thing, because then you can decide what type of a drum sound you want. But back in the day, I'm sure there were songs on the early Flower Kings album that were recorded just on 4 channels of drums, just kick drums separate, snare drums separate, and then the rest, because that's what I had. And then I needed to put in the guitars and the vocals and the whatever percussion stuff. So a very different time from now. Now we have all these options. So it is a long journey from there, and
Right.
I mean, didn't even know, is this something that people want to buy? So I just made this first album, The Flower King, and thinking, well, if I sell 500 copies, good. Then I can, have 500 people enjoy this music, and there's still prog music out there. And it just took off from there, and we made a second album and the third album, Retropolis, Start As We Are, and then suddenly going out playing shows in Europe and invited to America and Canada and Japan and
Just they're just good songs. I mean, that's really what it comes down to it. Good
oh
songs
yeah.
with good music is what carried on through everything. And I think and we'll talk. Let's hop into the album while we're talking about it, okay? And
Mm,
the album's called "Look at You Now." But I think what's really
mm,
great, and this is a good build up for it, is all the skills that you used prior before you had all this extra bells and whistles of your songwriting and building into creativity has built up and plays into you putting an album together with the technology. As you actually, the last couple of albums, people are just, if you've been reading online, fans are like, you guys just keep knocking out of the park. It's like they get better and better. And I think it
yeah,
becomes like more lush. And I think what you're doing is you're using your knowledge with the tools, which is just, visually, but musically painting a soundscape
yeah, yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah,
lush and beautiful without being, over the top programming. It's just you're using it as a tool. And I think this album, the first 2 songs are just over the top beautiful. The two
yeah.
you have 2 videos. Beginner's Eyes is the first one. And you gotta tell me the guitar lick, the first riff you start off with. is like
Yeah,
fantastic. I love it. It's so epic sounding. It says so much in such a few
cool.
bars.
Yeah. And the funny thing is that that very thing was something I wrote even before the Flower Kings started as a band. There was something from an old demo I picked out maybe last autumn. We started looking into songs that you're gonna find the right songs
Yeah,
for this album. And I just put in some demos I made recently, and then I looked back at some demos I did a couple of years back, and then I found like a folder with really old demos, and I just listened to them, and I said, "Oh,
yeah,
that's a nice little thing." And
yeah.
uh, then you need to start thinking, "Oh, did we ever record this?" Because just imagine all the music over the years, and not only with Flower Kings, but
Well, you did a
everything.
lot of
I've
bands.
been
Yeah, you did a lot of
with,
bands.
with Transatlantic and Agents of Mercy and Sea Within, etc. So for me, I've reached a point where I need to investigate. If I find something, I need to investigate if I recorded it before, because I don't listen to the old albums. It's not, if we play them, of course, I listen to
Right.
it, but it's not I'm listening back. But this one, the starting track for this album was something that I found and I liked it, and I liked it a bit, and then I sent it out to the guys, and I remember Hasse and Michael, they said, "Oh, that's a great, that's something we," and then I started building from that,
Yeah.
some of the vocals and the lyrics, uh, but the basics of the song is actually something that was written before the Flower Kings
Wow.
ever
So
was in
really,
my
so
head.
even that riff was part of it too.
Yeah, sure.
What is that? What is that guitar? What is it? Effect? What is that sound? That tone you got? It's
Um,
when you're playing it on. It's so beautiful. I love
it,
that sound.
yeah, I mean, it's nothing. Well, it's pretty basic stuff.
Yeah.
It's just like I'm over the years, I'm probably invest so much time in just finding the right overdrive,
Uh,
finding the right amp,
yeah.
the way you position the microphone, and sometimes it's layers of guitars. I mean, sometimes yes, it could be layer of a couple of guitars, but also guitars with a synth that sounds almost like a guitar.
Okay.
Not like a guitar synth, but it's like
Right.
I have a Moog and then I find a sound that matches up the guitar sound. This is a trick that people like ABBA, the Swedish pop group
Yeah.
ABBA did.
Oh, yes.
They did this thing, layers of sounds where you have like a piano and then with a mellotron behind and another old upright piano with some kind of out of tune piano, and they constructed layers of that, and that's the sound.
It was like a wall of
What you
sound.
Yeah, I mean, what you can do now, you buy a synth and then you have like 3 million sounds in that one, and then
Yeah.
you go online and you buy the Spectrasonics and you have another million sounds, and everyone is using the same sound. The same thing with guitars. It's like you have all these guitar effect boxes and they're pre-programmed and they sound great. But if you use the pre-programmed sounds, it's a good chance that someone else out there in South America or in
Yeah.
Russia and in China or Japan, they have the exact same guitar sound as you, because they also have a Paul Reed Smith guitar or a Gibson Les Paul, whatever, a Stratocaster. So I'm a little bit wary of just going with stock stuff. So that's why probably I just try to find my combination of whatever overdrive
Oh,
boxes
it's
or
beautiful. It's a beautiful sound. Whatever you
yeah,
come up
yeah.
with, it's. And I think you have a style. I mean, you're a fantastic guitar player, and I don't think people talk about it enough. You are a really good guitar player and soloist, and I think you have your own sound when you hear it. It's like you always have a great melody, and it's always clean, but it feels like it's simple, but it's complex at the same time, which is kind of smart. And I always hear, and I could be wrong. I always feel like you have like you just in the music you play, and not just Flower Kings. I hear you a lot of like jazz in it, like jazz chords and stuff. It feels like there's transitions in there, in your music sometimes? I don't know. Am I right with that? I mean, it just feels like that's an
Yeah,
influence.
I think you're right. I think you're right. The reality is that sometimes the music of the flower. I mean, take the
Yeah.
opening track as an example.
Well, yes, exactly. Yeah,
It's
please.
it's a fairly simple song, but as you say, I always go for finding the notes that are sort of besides everything
Hmm.
else, like this is the track, but I want to derail, that's my
Yeah.
intent, to derail a little bit and take a chance, maybe even to the point where people in the band, I think at one point there was one song, and I think first, not for this album, but recently another album, and I think I got an email from, I had made a guitar track, and I got a mail from Jonas Reingold, and he said, "Well, that's a great sound on guitar and great solo, but you're playing a wrong note," he said. I said, "What? How is it possible that I didn't hear the wrong note?" Okay, and then after a couple of days, there's another mail from Hasse, and he's saying the same thing. Yeah, that sounds great. That's a great mix of great tracks. And but there's one note that's bugging me on the guitar. Is that really is supposed to be like that? Or are you thinking maybe replaying? And I said, no, I'm not replaying. So can you tell me what note it is? And they told me, and I said, I'm hearing it, but this sounds perfect to me. I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
understand. I can't even understand what you're saying. It's not like, for me, in my mind, there's not a wrong note. That's just like, probably, as you say, the jazzy note.
Yeah. And I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
And I hear that. And that's why we talk about, that's one thing I love about your music. It feels a lot more, it feels pretty special, a little bit different. Just like we were talking before, like, even, like Zappa or any earlier programs, it has that unpredictability. Like it still feels like it's a good song, but it's always a left turn if you really listen to it.
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah.
not.
I'm glad you're saying that, because it's sometimes it's like I'm thinking, oh, is this is this too weird, or it's like
No, I love it.
you
I love it. It almost like I'm sorry to step on you. Um, it's like at the surface, if you look down, it looks like it's just a really great prog, beautiful song. The choruses are lush and everything. The lyrics are very smart, and it's actually great for nowadays. There's some really great lyrics on the album. At least the two singles I've heard are very positive, and they're very, especially for what the world's gone through. Um, but on top of that, just you listen to it, it's just like listening to it. You're like, oh, it's a good song. But when you really listen to it, like I listen to it with some really good headphones on it, and I listen to it, there's a lot of other stuff going on that you don't hear. And on your second and third and fourth pass, you're going to pick up something, you know. And
yeah,
that says
yeah,
a lot
yeah,
for the song and the
yeah.
songwriting. And that's why I've been a long time fan, because I always feel that, and the fact that I don't even know how you're doing at this point. This album is still so fresh to me. The Beginner's Eyes and Dreams are so fresh, and you have so much material you've done. Like I don't even know where you're getting it from at this point without feeling like you're being redundant. Because I'm not feeling like it's,
Hmm.
I don't feel like you're retreading yet, like in your music. I mean, your inspiration is just
I think probably a lot of what's on this album, and of course many other albums with the band, I think it's maybe at a first listen or a second or even a 10th listen, I think it may seem like it's quite simple, and it's nothing new really. It's not like it's not adding anything to rock history, if you know what I mean.
no, I do.
But I think, as you say, there are hidden layers, and I think for me it would be really easy because I have the knowledge. I have the knowledge of the music. I can make an album that sounds super complicated. But on the other hand, if you make, what is your intent? If you're making an album that sounds super complicated, and the intention is to impress people, then I start wondering, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Really, I want to create something that's beautiful. It's not like you're a painter. Do you want to impress people that you do something that's super crazy, or it took you like 6 million hours to do the painting? Is that the important thing, or is it what you're actually looking at? And the same thing with music. I think uh, the importance for me is that when you listen to it, it's a great thing if you like it instantly. If
Mhm.
you like the song, it's not like it's pushing you away. So you like the song, you can't really tell if it's good or if it's your favorite song. But after a couple of listens, you start liking little bits that you haven't heard in the first time. And then even if you put the album away for 6 months and then you bring it out again, and then you're thinking, wow, this is a really good album. Or even like 10 years later, because this is what happens to me. And that's the only thing I know. I know this is how my brain works with music. This is the way I take in music. It doesn't matter if it's the Allman Brothers or Joni Mitchell or Jimi Hendrix or Eric Clapton or the Kinks or the Beatles. Something I haven't heard before, I hear it now 35 or 40 years later, and I hear, oh, that was a great drum fill by
Yeah.
Ringo, or that was a great lick from Eric Clapton there. I didn't hear it first time. I didn't hear it like 25 years ago,
I
but I
hear
hear it
things
now. And
like that.
you
And
know,
I
the
think
the way people play the drums, the sound of the tom-toms, how they're tuned. And it's kind of nerdy, but I think I trust the audience to be a bit nerdy when it comes to music, like the Flower Kings or a
I
band
think
like the
so.
Flower
I
Kings.
think
I
you have a
just have,
very it's a niche audience. I think last week I was listening to Manifesto from
yeah,
your
yeah, yeah,
solo one, and I'm like, and I heard a song. I'm like, wait, I don't remember hearing that before. Literally just happened last week when I was listening to that album. I'm like, I can't think of what it was now. I should write it down because it happens so much when I hear music, and I hear it in your band and with you. I hear it so much now at this point. I'm like, I just hear new things now. It's like, but there was something that just stood out, and I was like, how could I miss that the first time? So like, and I've heard the album quite a bit since it came out, and it's
yeah, yeah,
still fresh. And that's, you know, even listening to these two new songs that are out, that's all I've heard
yeah,
so far, and I'm still digesting them and picking them apart. It took me like 5 times to hear, beginners before I started to get the gist to to to,
yeah.
to understand it. You know,
Yeah, sure, sure. I mean, there's bits, and it takes time to for me to be here to listen to the songs many times, probably more than you or
I would
anyone else.
imagine.
Yeah, the band, but I'm here, and I listen to it a lot, and I get tired of it, and then I rest for a few days, and then I listen again, and then I hear other stuff, and then I hear, oh, maybe the bass should be more upfront here because that's driving. It's not the drums that's driving this song. And I need to understand that. It's not like I know instantly that this is the way it's gonna be, or this is the way the mix is gonna be. And then maybe I listen to the fillings, I mean the guitar fills, or the keyboard stuff or the piano things that I love or I like. I think, oh, it should be in there. And then I'm thinking, does it really help the song? And then you get to the point where you take out the guitar fill because someone is singing there, and the guitar is just a distraction. So it's
I,
about putting in stuff, but also killing your darlings. Yes, I
mhm.
like the guitar, I like the synth fill, but it's too much. Or
I,
even the drum
yeah.
sometimes going with the drums.
It's funny because you
So
encapsulate a phrase I say all the time in the show is, "Are you serving a song?" And if you are, those are my favorite albums and my favorite artists, and that's
oh, yeah, yeah,
purely how you think, and it shows. And that's why your albums are up there all the time with me. Am I listening because it serves the song? It's a good song, and it can be so
yeah.
simple from a great. The Beatles have some of the most simple songs ever, but they're the most talented people. So I mean, it's about the song, and
Yeah, they were clever, probably with the help of George Martin, but they
oh, of
were clever
course, totally, George.
hearing this. And remember at the probably the age of whatever, 24, 25, when they started making really great albums around
Hmm.
Revolver, Sergeant Pepper, and the White Album, they already were seasoned producers themselves.
Yeah,
They probably with the help of George, but I think the band itself knew, after recording a lot and playing a lot, they knew that, okay, this song will benefit from less of that and more of this. So I mean, they're a good example of great produced, very simple but effectively beautiful
hmm.
music, I think, and arrangements. So
It's
so
hard to
we
write
we're
a good
trying
pop
to.
song. You know,
Sorry.
It's hard to write a good
Sorry,
simple pop song too,
what?
if you think about it. It's hard to write one that's simple. Simple is hard sometimes.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Sometimes it just comes to you, and then also you have to be wise enough to not reject it or say, "Oh, I'm in a prog rock band. I we can play this," because it's like, and I mean, come on, it's like with Transatlantic. I mean, the probably most well-known song there is "We All Need Some Light," a very very simple song. I'm not saying it's the best song, but I'm saying it's probably the most well-known song of the band. That happens to be a very, very simple little ballad.
But
But it
that band in
works.
its own it is, and that band in its own is another great band you're in with great musicians. I mean, this songwriting again, once again, yeah, it does work and it has its own little feel and sound, but it still follows the rules of are you serving the song? I mean, there's certain each musician has its own sound that adds to it a little differently, but it's serving the song. When you did this
Sure,
album,
sure.
you're doing like self edit because you're your own producer and editor. I mean, and putting the song list together for this album, Beginner's Eyes and Dreams, and I'm sure the rest of it goes great because you know historically you've had great song runs listing in your albums. Is it hard to a know when to stop, like when to self edit yourself and not go down the rabbit hole, or say I need to put some. I like this song order, but now I got to go back and fix this song so they blend even better the way I
Uh-huh.
hear it. You know what I'm saying? Like, do you feel like you're rebuilding sometimes to make your order work?
I think it's probably something that happens gradually. It's like if someone asks me, I mean, when we're in the process of just going in and start tracking the backing tracks, I'm a bit confused, to be honest, and always been like that. Always been like that. Uh, but I just trust that along the way I will know. It's a lot of it is actually instinct. And I mean, another good example is the album I made with John Anderson. That was
Ah,
an album that was made that way. We just trying to find a way and building and then rebuilding and rethinking and changing stuff around and gradually and just trusting that in the end we will have a great album. And so it's I think it's a process of trust, that in the end you will get to the point where you look at it and you say, I like the album as it is now. I like the way the flow of the songs. I like what's in there. I mean, for this album, we had a couple of more songs, I think, but I felt that they didn't really fit in the style of the album as far as the music and the lyrics.
the flow.
And so, yes, we could have put them in there, and maybe some people would be really happy. Oh, it's a longer album, but I think you have the wise sense of saying, okay, maybe we'll save that for later, and then we will see if we find a home for these songs in the future, in another album. But I think this album is as long as it should be. It has the songs it should have, and there's a theme and a thread going through it. And I mean, you haven't heard all of the album now, but
No, not
you
yet.
have certain themes coming back in other songs.
Hmm.
So in a way, like it's a long form piece of music that is connected with themes and sometimes even with lyrical themes or even vocal bits that we sort of moved around in the album. So yeah, I mean, I think you just know it by instinct when you're done with the
So
construction.
the
Yeah.
thank you for that answer. Maybe help clarify a little bit. Two other things I want to cover one of them is the artwork on the album, and it ties in with the video work. It's beautiful. The concept of the album cover and some of the details. There's a lot of details on that. Can you?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just that I talked a lot about chance or um, sometimes just happens. It seems to happen for a reason. And the reality is that I got contacted by a guy who I don't know before, and he was just a guy contacted me at Facebook, sent a message, and he told about his father, who was a Canadian kind of a stunt pilot. I mean, he's a guy flying small planes,
Yeah.
doing all
Like
these
a
loops
trick, yeah,
and
trick guy, yeah, yeah.
yeah, with smoke and daredevil things. And his father had just died, and his father was a huge Flower King fan. And I don't know why, but his son contacted me and just told this story about his father, and in this message, I think, or the one after that, he sent me a few images that he made with some kind of artificial intelligence, I
Yeah.
suppose, whatever you do these days. I haven't even tried. But anything anyway, he sent me a couple of, and I said, well, that looks great. I said, and then he sent me some more. So then I had maybe like 10 images to look at, and I took them out, a couple of days later and looked at, said, well, this could actually be an album cover. This is great, and I showed it to my wife, and she said, "Oh, that looks great." And I think I showed it to the band members, and we just agreed that this would actually be a cool artwork for the album, a different one, something we haven't done before.
Totally.
Uh, yeah, and it just had a certain vibe that we all liked, and the colors and the surreal thing with the eye and the flower and everything just fitted in with, you know, the album we were working with. That's how we felt. Uh,
What a great
and
story. I mean, that's
yeah, it is.
fantastic.
Yes, it is. And he was so happy, and he is so happy. He's just over the moon, and being able to supply this for us, knowing that this is his father's favorite
Yeah,
band. So that's a lovely story.
that is
And
fantastic.
and
It's great art.
yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And I mean, the title of the album is "Look at You Now," and that's something that came probably by chance, but also intuition. I don't know, but I just sent this artwork thing to the other guys, and I just put in the Flower Kings logotype, and then I put in just a few letters in the bottom, and it says "Look at You Now." I don't know why I did it. I just did, and then we started talking about the title for the album. We were looking at song titles, and we didn't find anything like "Beginner's Eyes." No, not really. We were just looking at the
Yeah,
titles
just
of the
yeah.
album. No. And then someone said, "Well, what did you have there?" I thought that looked, sounds fine to me, as an album title, because it can mean so many different things. Can be look at you now, or could be look at us now, or can be look at the world now. And that's probably where I was thinking, well, look at us now, or look at you now, look at the world now,
Yeah.
because it's lots of the lyrics are very connected to now. It's not like some fair lady, back in the 1200s or something like that, the shining knight, or
Yeah.
that's not what it is. So I mean, just looking at the lyrics, I said, well, that's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea, because it can mean many different things. So look at you now, and it was something that we haven't had that type of a title for an album. uh,
It works
um,
so good. Like when you see it, because sometimes if you see an album and the artwork and a band and you follow them, you're like, I don't get that. Or where are they coming from? Or you got to kind of, it depends on how it goes. And sometimes you see it. And like when I saw the album cover and the title, I was like, it didn't like, oh, what's that coming from? And like it told me, like, oh, that's cool. Like it didn't make you go, what I mean? It just felt like it fit at
yeah,
first
yeah, it,
impression.
it
So that's kind of a nice thing just to see like
yeah,
that right off the bat. Um,
yeah, it
and
leaves it kind of open to for everyone, or anyone to
but
think
with your
or
lyrics, I've seen, especially in the first two, I've heard, it feels like you writing, it feels personal, yet personal on a level that everybody can take it and make it personal for themselves, which is also
Yeah, yeah,
tricky in
yeah.
lyrics to
Because
do.
we were thinking, because you used the word you. Look at you now, and that I think we're as we're speaking directly
Yeah,
to them. So I think that's what I liked about it too.
it's
Sometimes
very
progressive can be kind of pompous and a little bit too grand, in
yeah
that sense.
grandiose. It can be a
Yeah,
little extra air in it than needed, but I think it
yeah,
works with the lyrics though too. Like I said, with the song, so everything kind of works as it's very open and introspective, and it feels good. And like I'm looking forward to it. The album is September 9th, right? Dropping
yeah.
opening, and you have a tour starts in October.
True.
Any
I
of the
mean, we're
tour information for people?
a tour in Europe starting the first day of October and going on all of October. So we're really playing many cities all through Europe.
Hmm.
And before that, in September, we actually have like a Flower Kings weekend. So that's kind of connected to the release of the album. And
Okay.
we're playing two days in our hometown. And so that's going to be evening shows, different shows. And then we have daytime, we're going to have all the stuff that people do these days. You can meet the band, get the signed CD, you can take your photos. You will hear us play other people's songs like David Bowie or Neil Young songs or Yes
Oh
or
wow,
Beatles, or and some of our friends will come up and jam and invite people
that sounds fun.
to yeah, I'm sure it's going to be lots of fun. So that's in the middle of September, but then October we're going out playing the
All
the
over Europe.
the regular shows. Yeah, yeah.
And I want to, everything's on your website, on the Flower Kings. Just type in Flower Kings, it'll pop up. It's on Roine Stolt. Is it, I don't know the URL for that, but it's like, I know it's your name is actually in the URL for the address.
Yeah,
I'll put the link.
Roines.com.
Thank you. And
Yeah,
I'll put the address right underneath the show as they always do. So people can just click on it when they're done watching this and go right to it. And
yeah.
check it out. The dates are on there, the album information, you can order it. All the reissues we talked about are on there. I mean, you've got your other albums, you were on there. Um, you've got a ton of stuff on there. It's quite a bit. I mean, you're very prolific.
It's quite a bit. Yeah, I was thinking the other day, oh my goodness. And then and sometimes it comes back to you. I mean, just earlier today I was fixing some stuff for the very first Flower King, not Flower Kings, but Flower King
Yes.
album. The album I did that started everything. It's released on vinyl now, I think, in a couple of months or a couple of weeks, I don't know. So just going back to that, and revisiting and making sure that all the lyrics are printed correct, and the timings and the credits, blah blah blah. But I mean, each and every album is like I welcome it because I have a chance to correct stuff that maybe was wrong. You have the chance to listen to the audio and maybe tweak a little bit the mastering and stuff like that, and fix. And I have to say, for the other albums I've done, not only remastering, but I did remixes of a couple of songs each album. So I think you can hear them in a much clearer stuff that you didn't hear. I mean, like acoustic guitar or a tambourine or another vocal thing that wasn't heard on the original album. You can hear in clarity, and probably less compressed than it was back then because it was another time, and
Right.
that's what people used to do then, just squash it so you get the loudest possible level.
No high,
Yeah,
no low.
exactly.
Just mids.
Yes, just the mids and everything is slightly distorted, so I worked quite a bit with it, and I'm happy I did. It took a lot of time, and but everything I think is out now on the Inside Out, and
I
of
think you having
course.
time between though is good too, because it's allowed you to marinate, if I use the word
Oh,
properly, on songs you've done all these years, and you can go back. Because sometimes you're always going to go back and pick your stuff apart, but to really have some
oh,
time apart from it, you'll have fresh eyes to go. No, this is a clean cut. This is kind of what I need here, without, you know, the wormhole.
yeah, yeah. It seems like it at the moment. I mean, back then, certain things. It was really important to me, But now it's like, as you say, you step back, you can look at it maybe like more like a producer
Right,
and think,
exactly.
what is, you know. and now will I take the chances? Will I master it with a little bit more dynamics? Yes, certain people will say, "Oh," and I mean, honestly, I've heard from people say, "Oh, I didn't like your new mix or your new master. The old one sound." And I think, well, that's terrible. I heard it. I heard it in my studio here, and it sounded absolutely terrible to my ears. And now I made a mix that sounds good to me. But if you prefer the old one, good
It's
for
already out
you.
there.
But yeah,
Well, that you're
it's
never going to
already.
win. You're never going to win that, though. I mean, I talked to somebody, an
No,
artist, and I won't mention the artist's name, and I said, I'll be honest with you, your debut album is what broke that genre. I said,
yeah,
but being into recording, I said, wish your guitars were up in the mix better. Not even the
yeah,
quality of the recording. Offended. That's the
yeah,
album that created a genre. I'm like, I get that. And I had the album
yeah,
and I have the sound. I go, but as a fan of your playing, I would have still have
yeah,
loved, even back then, to hear your mix higher up in the mix. So even
yeah.
the artists are so like you're just never gonna make everybody happy on that one. So
No, no, no. I mean, the only thing you can do, you can listen to it, you can be here, you can be have a good night's sleep, be sober, sit in the studio, have a coffee, listen again, listen again, listen again, go have a walk, out in the sun, and then you come back. I listen. I mean, I don't listen loud in my studio. I listen the way it could be heard on a radio or something like that.
yeah,
And if it sounds good, then you can hear the drums, you can hear the kick drum, it sounds full, you can hear the vocals, you can hear the guitars, it's not screaming, and you can hear there's some dynamic to it, then it's a good mix. The way I understand it today, and then remember the Flower King started 30 years ago,
oh
so
yeah,
it was a different me then, and there was always someone saying to me, "You push it up." I remember so many times I made mixes for the Flower Kings, sending out to the guys, and they said, "Well, it sounds." I compare it to that band,
yeah.
and their album sounds so it's a really rocking, and our album sounds so wimpy, and yeah, but what can I do? I know that's the standard, and then I try to meet halfway and say, okay, I push it up a bit, and I mean, going back now, I just feel that
It
if I
has to be
if I
loud to be, it's not wimpy. Being who
well,
you are is just as strong,
that's why
you know?
that's why God created the volume knob. If
Exactly.
it's not loud enough, turn it up, and then you're gonna feel the kick drum, in your gut, or
Yeah.
the snare drum.
And it better be
Uh,
produced well if it goes up louder because then you're
yeah,
going to hear it even
yeah.
more.
But I mean, I've been lucky. I mean, the guy in the studio that we've been working the last few albums, Lasse, the owner, he's probably in my side. He knows because he's the same age as me. So
Mhm.
it's the philosophy of sounds is like it can be all over the place, but you arrive in a certain place, and then doesn't matter what other people say. They can say, well, your album sounds so weak, compared to that band or that band. Well, say turn the volume up then if you think it sounds weak, and then you'll tell me if you think the album sounds weak, because it doesn't. I'm in
And
the studio here with really good sound system and good converters and everything, and if you're doing it right, it's going to sound really powerful, and much much more powerful than the original recording. It's just like the way of you got to change your way of thinking. Don't listen on your iPhone, don't listen on a like an MP3 player. That's not going to do the trick.
there's three ways I do it. I tell everybody when an album comes out. So if I'm repeating myself to people that won't listen, I'm sorry, but I can tell you
Yeah,
there's three ways as the test for me. I get an A. Can you listen to it like at work or something and you put in just earbuds?
yeah, yeah.
Then I have a nice headset. I just listen
Mhm.
to it. I close my eyes and I visualize it. I'm focusing in. That's
Yeah,
the total deep dive. And then I do it from the outside with another headset on, another ear set on, doing like yard work and just stuff like that. Because your
hmm,
brain's functioning in like work mode, then there's like relaxing mode, but you're doing other things outside of working. It's kind of menial, so you're not really thinking, but you're listening as you do robotic work, thinking work, and then you're just listening. And then I kind of listen to it all, and
yeah,
I kind of add it up together, and that's what makes a full sound. If or some albums just can't be listened to, or some things are that's how I
Yeah,
qualify the quality of an album because if it can stand the test of all those, then it's a fully rounded
yeah.
album.
Then that's the perfect mix. I mean, there are albums like that out there, and
Oh, yeah,
we're trying our best, to get to that point,
yeah. I think they're great.
So
I've done many of those things with many of the Flower Kings and Transatlantic and Anderson and Stoll. I mean, I can't say enough about how much I've heard that one. Especially I love that one in my headset the best because I don't want to do anything else. I just want to listen to it when I hear it.
vinyl version out of it. And that one is
Yeah.
mixed because that started with me trying to do a surround mix.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, the record label were sort of saying, well, maybe we do a surround mix,
Hmm.
release of that, but it didn't happen. But I was sort of halfways with that, and then I also did 24-bit 96 mixes of it. So I had these lying around, and then they came to me a couple of months ago and they said, well, thinking of doing another round of vinyls because the Anderson Stolt is sold out on vinyl. You can't get that anywhere. And I said, yeah, cool. And let me look for the files. And then I looked for the files and I found these 24-bit 96 files. And I also found that I've remixed the songs in a more dynamic way, I think. And even the opening track, I think, has another 2 or 3 minutes. And that's actually a very nice keyboard solo from Tom Brislin
Oh,
that
nice.
was cut out. Yeah. So
That's
that's
exciting.
yeah, it is. I
It's
think it has I don't know, probably I mean mainly I think the dynamics. I think you can feel the drums a little bit more,
Yeah.
the bottom and the punch, and it's a little bit clearer as far as certain percussion, vocal things and guitar things are cut out. There's probably nothing that you're gonna miss, but just things that were it was in the mix,
Right.
but it wasn't
I got
needed.
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's sort of it's
Because it's a
clouding
good
the
album. Yeah. Because it's a good sounding
yeah.
album. So actually, now you got me one other question. Now, Dolby Atmos. That's gonna be a new world for you. Are you gonna hop into that with production because that can affect your songwriting too? Because if you can write knowing that you can direct your
Oh,
mix to other
yeah, totally,
places,
totally.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother monster of production.
It is, and the reality is, I think I'm probably feel I probably getting a bit too old for that kind of thing. I don't want I don't want to spend the rest of my life learning stuff. I do have surround, and I actually, as I said, I did actually a surround mix for half of the Anderson Stolt album, so I do have a system, but that's more like 5 speakers and a subwoofer. So it's not
I,
whatever Atmos is.
yeah,
That's yeah.
and there's two different kinds. There's the kind that Apple put out that they mixed it as Atmos, but it
Mm.
wasn't really the producers doing it, and it's a weird one. It has some dimension, but not the same. And I've heard producers actually do it and send me the original Atmos version of it, and the true version of it
Yeah,
is unbelievable. It's like you're
yeah.
standing in the middle of everything, and for a fan of that artist, you couldn't get any closer. You know what I mean? Like to be
No, no,
surrounded and immersed in it. You know,
yeah. It,
it's a new
it's
world,
it,
and
it it's a new world. It sounds interesting. I kind of like it, but I'm scared of getting myself into something that means I'll spend more time just
I
learning
get it.
stuff and with the perfection I strive for as knowing myself. I
You
think
have
is
to do it
probably
right though.
like
You can't do it like I think surround sound people can get away with making mistakes and not mix it their way. I think Dolby
yeah,
Atmos you really have to do it right because you're trying to you know what I mean
yeah, yeah.
to capture a
So I mean,
sound.
possibly maybe have some production go to someone else that's done it many many times and then leave it to them and give them instructions and or be there and point and say, oh, I like that and I like that, can we do it like that? Maybe I don't think I will be doing it here.
It's just an
I'm fine.
interesting
I have
thought as a songwriter too though because you're a songwriter and producer. So as a
oh
songwriter, if you know you're writing and you can write a song, go I can put it here and here. That means when I orchestrate it, I can do this and this. So it might affect how
believe
you songwrite.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I've been thinking like that because as said, I think it came up back in 2016 when they were, or 17 maybe, when they were asking me about the Anderson Stolt and the surround thing. And then I started thinking, and even for other products like the last few Flower Kings albums, I've been sometimes thinking about, you put on an acoustic guitar, or you put on some percussion, and or you have some backing vocals, and you're thinking, what if we had like a surround and I put them back there? That would be a different mix, and that would be an effect, or having like this big power synth coming in halfway through the song, and making
Yep.
an impact, like
And
a
on different
surprise.
sides too. Yeah, but if you have on different sides, it's
Oh,
not the same as surround sound. Surround sound feels like you're being like it's blown behind you, and a lot of surround sound is just bass underneath you. But the true Dolby
yeah,
Atmos is like you're hearing it like it's like a little over here to the left and here to the right, and then it's above you here, and it's like it's coming in all around you, and you're just like
yeah.
swimming in it, and it's so different than what
I'm
people have
sure.
experienced.
I'm sure it's going to be the thing. I mean, for the future. I mean, setting up like a really professional sound system, just having all these speakers is like kind of expensive. But I think reality is that is sooner or later we're going to get there. And even like for a normal living room, there's going to be, you go to the Walmart and you get your Dolby
Right.
Atmos. They call it then. But it's going to happen.
That would be good. I mean, luckily, I mean, Dolby Atmos is good where it's actually consumable now, where they can mix it almost for most sizes. Anyhow, we can still kind of obviously the better it is, the better it's going to be. But just you as being a songwriter and producer, it's just such a good question to see how you would take it and mix it in with your songwriting and your production. And obviously, you're right; it
Oh
would probably
yeah.
be another rabbit hole for you production wise. But
Yeah,
just as a
yes,
fan,
it will
it's
be.
interesting.
It sounds like wonderful and very scary.
I I can see that. I can see that with it. Roy, I want to thank you for giving some time today. I mean, I love it. This has been
Yeah.
great. It's always been a pleasure to talk to you. People, check out the album September 9th. If you're over in Europe, check
Yep.
them out. I hope someday I get to see you. Obviously, I'm in the US. Hope someday you can make it over. I make it over there. I mean, you know,
We're working on it. Working on it. Yeah, remember, we're playing the cruise next year, and
yep,
that would probably be a great opportunity for us to do a little American tour
yeah,
before or after the cruise.
that would be
We're,
fantastic.
we're talking about it and we're planning, so we'll see
Good.
what
Well,
comes
there are
up.
a lot of challenges. I'm not going to get into it, but people who listen to my show know a lot of challenges of European acts coming over. I talk about the finances and this and that and that. So there are challenges, and
Mm.
bands usually work real hard to come over there. So if they do come over, see
Also,
them. There's a lot of work for the band to come
yeah,
over to the US. So make sure you don't miss the show.
yes, takes a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.